5567.
With the power of Tandem HR, you are in the fast lane on Main Street with Get Down to Business with Shalom Klein, the show for business and jobs. Now, the champion of networking, the advocate of jobs, the guru of business, your host, Shalom Klein.
The famous Walt Disney once said that times and conditions change so rapidly that we must keep our aim constantly focused on the future. We are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And business, we talk a lot about business here. You're on with Get Down to Business. And I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you're there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you won't want to miss. It's a live show this week. It's all about risk. And this week, we'll be joined by guests Daniella Levitt and Matt Sloan, as well as Dan Proft, along with a new Playmakers Spotlight. And I'll be sharing tips on how to figure out if entrepreneurship is right for you. Get Down to Business is powered by Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them at tandemhr.com or call 630-928-0510, 630-928-0510. You can also email them, simplify@tandemhr.com. Joined here in studio by Daniella Levitt, the author of Ready, Set, Risk. Daniella, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Shalom. Thank you for having me here. It's great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you, and we encourage our listeners to call in at 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. Daniella, not everybody that I know has written a book, and you've written the book because of your knowledge and your experience. If you don't mind, tell us what led you to take this step forward.
Certainly. As many of the listeners will probably shortly figure out from my accent, I'm not exactly from around here. I grew up in South Africa. I lived there until I was 26 and then moved here on my own to the States to build a whole new life for myself. And that and many other subsequent risks, including leaving corporate America after a very long and successful time there, starting up 2 successful companies, has put me in a place where I was able to recognize that I was a very good risk taker. It doesn't mean that everything always works out perfectly, but I was very good at taking risk, bouncing back from risk, and I believed that I had a lot of value to share with others, and hence I decided to write a book.
Wow. And as you just alluded to, Daniella, it's one thing to talk the talk and another thing to walk the walk. You've had a fairly successful career. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your background and that preceded your risk-taking.
Sure. So in South Africa, I started out my career working for Anderson Consulting, and that was actually the first big risk that I took when I pitched Anderson to let me come and work for them when I was still doing my graduate studies. Then I decided to make the move and approached companies here. I ended up working for Deloitte Consulting here in the States for 11 years. And my next huge risk came when I actually decided to leave Deloitte in the year that I was up for partnership, which is a huge risk to take after having pursued that goal for so long and so adamantly. To elect to walk away from it to follow other aspirations was just an incredible risk to take, but very worthwhile for me.
Some people get lucky in life and people win the lottery, and you would say, I guess, that's not because of any risk that they took. For most of us, our big step forward is when we take a little bit of risk and big and really awesome things happen. And that happens to everybody. But in particular, I'd like to focus on women because I think that's something that you're very passionate about. Why do more people not take risk in their career, in their personal life? Tell us a little bit of insight.
Well, there are a number of different elements. One is personal and one is professional. Some of it comes down to financial elements, which you have to take into consideration. So for men, there is often much more of a predisposition to taking risk, and even though they might be the primary breadwinners, there's generally a sense that men will be more resilient and able to move around in taking those risks. Women tend to hold themselves back more, often second-guess themselves, and not necessarily have the confidence to be able to move forward with their risk-taking. So be it professional, be it personal, and also the support that surrounds you, so many factors that come into play here.
And we're talking about risk-taking with Daniella Levitt, the author of Ready, Set, Risk. We'd love to hear what risk you are taking, and you could call us at 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. So, Daniella, you're joined here at the station with your husband, Steve, and it sounds like you were hardwired to take risk and to encourage people to take risk. Tell us a little bit about your family, and has everybody always been supportive along the way, or have you had to win people over?
My family has always been incredibly supportive, even from the point where my parents recognized that their youngest daughter was going to go off and live in another country all by herself and build a life and career for herself, and they had nothing but positive support for that. My husband, Steve, has also been incredibly supportive along the way. I will say that it has often surprised me in taking risk. There are people that step forward that have supported me in incredible ways, and that I would not necessarily have expected them to do so. And on the other side of the coin, there are often people who you would think would be great supporters who do not step forward. You really have to prepare yourself for that.
And it's amazing. You and I met through networking, and you have to surround yourself with really good people. So it sounds like you've had a great background personally, professionally, but tell us what's inside the book. What insights, what advice can our listeners look forward to when they become readers of Ready, Set, Risk?
Fantastic. Ready, Set, Risk is a book about positive strategies and tactics for women to turn career risk into opportunity. I will say up front, though, that even though the book is primarily targeted at women, there is a huge amount of information there that is absolutely relevant for men as well.
That's really helpful and really important. For our listeners that take one thing away from our brief conversation here on the radio, what is the little bit of advice that you wish you knew a long time ago, that perhaps a little tidbit, a little teaser that you could share with our listeners?
One of the things I wish I had known a long time ago is that you have to start somewhere, start now. And that's one of the things I do talk about in the book. Taking risks is not about leaping 100 miles in one big jump. It's about figuring out that you have something that you believe in about yourself. It's about talking about it to others, starting to build a game plan, and being willing to move forward and find people who can help you move forward with those first few steps. Even if the plan changes, even if the end game changes, the whole point is you have to be willing to start somewhere and start now.
Many of our listeners are young professionals, people starting out in their career. What advice do you have for them? Should they follow the conventional path, or how early do you start taking risk?
Well, first of all, I would advise people start taking risk as early as possible. It's like a muscle. Once you exercise it and you do it more frequently, it's easier to do it again and again. And in terms of figuring out what's right for you, I always talk about, and I talk about this in my book as well, you need to know yourself. You need to know what your core strengths are. You're far more likely to be successful when you're starting from a position of strength, what your leading strengths are. So know what those are, and risk with that as your anchor.
Well, Daniella Levitt, you're an accomplished professional. You have a family. You are now an author. What's next? Is there going to be more books? Is there going to be more ways that you hope to start a conversation about risk and entrepreneurship, really?
There is a lot more that's planned next. So there will certainly be more books in the future, but probably not for another year or so. Obviously, related to the book, my whole point in writing the book was to drive change for the employees and the organizations in which those employees are operating. So there is consulting work that I'm doing, workshops, programming. Something that I'm terrifically excited about is in 2016, I'm going to be doing what I'm calling a Ready, Set, Risk 10-city conversation series. I'll be spending a week each in 10 different cities, doing both community and corporate programming around Ready, Set, Risk. So I would definitely ask for companies that are interested in being a part of that. They should definitely reach out to me. Now's the time to get involved.
Fantastic. And who are you looking to talk to? That's an important question. We've got fantastic listeners out there that are in a variety of different industries and all sorts of different professionals. Who are you looking to discuss your book with?
Here's the interesting thing. I've already gotten so much great feedback. The book has been incredibly well received by young women that are both entrepreneurs and in the corporate setting, by women that are in the middle of their career and are looking to take the next jump into senior executive ranks, and even from women that are actually stepping out of their first career and perhaps moving into a second career or life stage. And the interesting thing is what I talk about is relevant to all of those women.
Fantastic. Well, again, Daniella Levitt, the author of Ready, Set, Risk, a true professional, an author. We're excited to see what's next in your career in writing books and inspiring people. So I guess the most important question that I'm sure everybody's asking is, how do they get in touch with you and how do they find your book?
Thank you for asking that. Couple of things. The book is available on both Amazon and Barnes & Noble websites. People can get in touch with me via my website, DaniellaLevitt.com. I can also be reached via 312-466-7577.
Fantastic. Daniella Levitt, the author of Ready, Set, Risk, some great advice for young professionals, for people well established in your career, men and women. Everybody needs to take some risk and transform your lives. There's so much more that can happen. You're listening to the show that's all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. You're listening to Get Down to Business. I'm your host, Shalom Klein. After the break, we're going to be joined by executive business coach and Vistage Chair Dick Smith for the Playmakers Spotlight. We've also got Dan Proft, radio host right here on AM 560. The Answer is going to share his reaction to the Supreme Court decisions over the past week. And finally, we've got Matt Sloan of American Chartered Bank. A great show lined up for you. We're going to be continuing the conversation about business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. Don't touch that dial. Thanks, Daniella, for joining us on the program. We'll be sure to have you back real soon. Until then, you're listening to Get Down to Business. Don't touch that dial.
Stuck?